Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, it is a pleasure to join you in the celebrations of the 4th African Day of Standardization being held during the 22nd ARSO General Assembly events in the historic city of Arusha, Tanzania, under the theme, The Role of Standardization in Women's Empowerment and Development Towards Agenda 2063. The adoption of Agenda 2063 by the 24th Summit of the African Union Heads of States and Government as the continent's 50-year structural transformation and development agenda is a milestone. It is a milestone because of its aspiration for an Africa where development is people-driven, unleashing the potential of women and youth. It is a great opportunity and a real coincidence for me to have been once a former ARSO African expert in African traditional medicine and now to be participating in this event as ARSO Standardization Goodwill Ambassador. This African Day of Standardization has been set aside to commemorate the birth of ARSO in 1977 with the view of promoting trade facilitation and economic development in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it is agreed that Africa has finally caught the imagination of one and all as a potentially prosperous part of the world. Africa's solid average growth rate of more than 5% over the past 15 years bears witness to the region's impressive economic potential. Its young and growing population, vast resources, and largely untapped markets could provide the foundation for a continent-wide renewal powered by technological innovations. Africa's progress also depends on fast-growing domestic markets, thriving entrepreneurship, emerging middle class of urban consumers, a diversity of ecosystems, both in terms of mineral resources and its unique biodiversity, large-scale and vast land areas with huge potential for agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, in spite of these potential, there are challenges that can pose a risk to growth in this 21st century. Many African economies are still not prepared for global and domestic changes due to their external trade orientation in primary goods. There are still inequalities, poor productivity in agriculture and the service sector. More than a decade of consistently high growth rate have yet to trickle down to significant parts of the population living in poverty or extreme poverty. A majority, especially women and youth, are still left out of the African economic growth story and with associated security and instability threats. Income inequality, non-inclusiveness in the region remain among the highest in the world. In terms of global trade, Africa is again a poor performer with overall export remaining focused on commodities. African firms still continue to face stiff competition both on the domestic and global markets. The differences between the national standards and conformity assessment procedures make trade between African countries difficult, contentious, and expensive, and would explain the low intra-African trade. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa has a population dividend and, paradoxically, a non-productive small-medium enterprise, yet this sector is set to play a key role in generating a pattern of economic growth that is innovative, labor-intensive, pro-entrepreneurship, and competitive. Africa needs to orient itself towards industrialization and to develop its manufacturing sector with more focus on value-addition product as well as sustainable development within the context of urbanization that has taken place without industrialization. Access to energy and food security are key issues as Africa is set to be burdened with the impacts of climate change, which will threaten agriculture, livestock, fisheries, forest, and leading to perennial conflict over resources. So what are the missed opportunities for the continent? There is consensus that a functioning international system requires a high degree of integration with a focus on trade facilitation, that is, removal of barriers to trade and harmonization of policies, better understanding of the role of standardization, improve infrastructure so as to build an integrated region will all help to enhance Africa's competitiveness and growth in line with Agenda 2063. The 26th Annual World Economic Forum on Africa, held in Kigali in May 2016 and attended by African leaders and policymakers, reiterated that Africa's positive economic outlook is under pressure, mainly due to adverse changes in the global economy. Low global prices for major commodity exports, currency devaluation, and debt sustainability considerations, as well as security threats, have weakened growth in some countries. This calls for investment in infrastructure, develop the regional market, and creating regional trade opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, for this to happen, Africa must stay focused in diversifying its economies, embracing technology and innovation, access to quality education, develop infrastructure and ICT infrastructure, and develop common market and address gender inequality. Africa must focus on the establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the CFTA. To benefit further from CFTA, Africa must focus on reducing technical barriers to trade. Major inconsistencies among countries, standards, technical regulation, and conformity assessment regime as major obstacle to trade remain. There is therefore the need to harmonize the standards, technical regulation, conformity assessment regime in Africa and foster greater collaboration among countries to share and implement common technical standards, technical regulation, and conformity assessment procedures. The UNECA and the African Union are reiterating the impact of standardization in the expansion of global trade, regional integration, multilateral and bilateral free trade agreements. The two bodies call on the CFTA members to appreciate and recognize the importance of standards, metrology, conformity assessment, and accreditation. 2017 will be Africa Year of Quality Infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, I note with delight the various initiatives which have been undertaken at the continental level to champion stronger quality infrastructure in Africa and where ARSO is playing a key role. ARSO should play a leading role in championing awareness creation on the benefits of standardization conformity assessment, as well as the need for well-developed quality infrastructure in Africa. An efficient quality infrastructure architecture will support and strengthen Africa's ability to establish and continually improve the quality of goods and services. The CFTA should also ensure the removal of non-tariff barriers, facilitate convergence on regulatory measures, and enhance trade facilitation so as to achieve the ambitious targets of the Global Agenda 2030 and Africa's own Agenda 2063. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we must appreciate that Africa's inclusive and sustainable growth can only happen when Africa's mothers and girls' talents are valued, as they account for more than 50% of the population and remain an untapped resource. We must not lose focus on the link between standardization and greater industrialization, manufacturing, value addition and diversification, revolution of the SMEs and agricultural sector, trade and export competitiveness, as well as sustainable economic development. The trade integration would not happen without a strong conformity assessment and mutual recognition of certificate within our countries. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to reiterate my humble responsibility as an ARSO Standardization Goodwill Ambassador to advocate at the highest level of Africa's decision-making the need for policies and programs that will lead to increased financial and resource allocation to ensure the development of quality infrastructure in Africa, which will lead to enhancing the international competitiveness of regional goods and services, strengthening the competitiveness of SMEs, demonstrate to the public and the private sector the strategic importance of standards in facilitating trade, build capacities and awareness on the importance of standardization conformity assessment in regional stakeholders and African citizens, deepen the process for harmonizing standards and to promote integration, improve market access and facilitate trade driven by African needs, provide practical information on technical requirements, regulation standards, acceptable tests and certificates, facilitate the establishment of internationally recognized standardization, quality testing, calibration, inspection, and certification systems in Africa. Once again, I would like to send my apologies to ARSO members for not physically attending the ARSO General Assembly and reiterate my support to the ARSO agenda. I wish you a fruitful deliberation, and I thank you for your attention.